prepare for early childhood caries?
Most important thing about early childhood caries and the awareness is that, first of all, the milk tooth, should not be taken for granted. That is the most important awareness that has to be brought in to the minds of please, tends to put the tongue out. This habit, that's called the tongue thrusting habit. Also, the speech of the child is hampered. They don't pronounce words very clearly.
What is your take on online classes as an academician point of view?
It's a big change nowadays to attend online classes. Some kind of somebody is not able to understand somewhere, and then we ask them, someone is not able to understand, we ask them, and then we repeat the concepts. But during the online classes also that is possible. Actually, that is theriyala, I don't know. And that is also one important piece. Undergraduation definitely mischievous. Very, very important key factor.
When it comes to dietary need of children, what would you recommend is the safest and healthiest meal? Like, we all know children love chocolates and they lead to dental caries. So how do we implement and encourage children in regards to oral management?
First, I love chocolates too. Okay, எனக்கு ரொம்ப பிடிக்கும் chocolate. So I cannot say don't have chocolates. Basically, dietary changes or the dietary influences are very, very critical. என்னன்னா, the more they take retainable foods, ரொம்ப பல்ல ஒட்டக்கூடிய தன்மை, things that stick to the teeth very easily and don't get removed for a very prolonged period of time are the culprits. Like, for example, in caramel chocolates are there, no? They're very sticky. They stick to the teeth very easily and they don't come out at all. So such things. Then your pastries, such things which stick to your teeth very easily. These, after consuming such foods, the mouth has to be, the child has to rinse the mouth, with water. Plain water is also okay. Just gargle it out and rinse and spit out the water. That itself, clarifies a little bit of your oral cavity to a great extent, actually. So that habit has to be instilled in the children. Whatever you eat, go rinse your mouth. That is very easy to do. They don't need a toothbrush or a toothpaste for it. Rinse your mouth after every meal, okay? And even if you have your snacks or chocolates, please rinse out. So this has to be instilled in the minds of the children. And also, when you're going to give them some, sweets or chocolates, try and give them along with the meal itself. They're having their lunch, give it along with the lunch itself. So what happens is the cleansing ability is also going to be together. They chew the food also, they chew the chocolate also. I don't mean side by side. I just mean like either you give it immediately after your meal or just before the meal. So what happens is the chewing ability and the cleansing ability is going to be better during the meal time. And it's going to be easily washed off. That is one thing. And that is one thing that has to be kept in mind. You can give it during that time. And also, when you give it to them at a different point in time, the pH of the saliva is also going to come down. If you're going to give them, for example, chocolate is going to be given to them separately. What happens is the pH of the saliva is going to come down. That is when your microorganisms are going to go and attack the tooth. So that is a very critical pH. So that is going to remain low for a very prolonged period of time if you don't drink water again. So that's the key. So immediately after you eat something, gargle and rinse out your mouth. And try and give a lot of, chewable items rather than very sticky, retainable items. Anything that is chewed and eaten is very good. So try and give them more of that. And there are also parents who come to us and say they don't have any chocolates, doctor. They have only chips. Chips also get retained in our oral cavity. The processed chips that we eat, if we noticed very clearly, they will stick onto the molars on the occlusal surface, on the top surface. They will stick on, they will be there. So it is not that your chips cannot be carious. No, your chips also can be carious. Any retainable foodstuffs can be carious. So obviously we cannot go and tell a child don't have chocolates. We can give them such differences, like give them a chocolate just before the meal. That is a good option. Ask them to rinse their mouth. Okay, if you're giving them a chocolate, don't give them more caramel based chocolates. Try and avoid such chocolates. Maybe once in a while you can give them. And so these are the simpler dietary things that you can change. And if you're going to give them milk, if you're going to add sugar, try and add less amount of sugar. Do not give anything to the child after the child brushes the teeth at night. Nothing, not even not even sugar with milk with sugar. Once you've brushed your teeth at night, the only thing that you can have is water. So these things have to be kept in mind. And then the proper lifestyle. So also you can also give them, see, I have something, I mean, I usually give some card like this. You know, it has like, I brush my teeth morning and night. Week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. So something that's practiced for such a long period of time. For example, for a month, if it's practiced, definitely it's going to become a habit for them. And then they get a reward once they can write down their name here. And then they get a reward when they come for the next checkup. Once everything is ticked, then they get a reward or a small gift or something, a smiley badge or something like that. So something that can, the small rewards also will keep them going. So these are small things that can be done.
Nowadays, parents are so scared to take their children to the dental hospital and they take only when they have swelling or pain. So, what is the correct age for the child to visit the dental hospital, ma'am?
Parents are scared to take the children to the dentist. There are no substitutes for it. Basically, you have to take your child to the dentist. That just the way you take them to pediatrician. Just like how the vaccines are given, you have a proper immunization schedule. You have to stick to the schedule. Yes, you have to take them to the pediatrician. Every dose is important. Everything has to be taken care of. Just similar to that is that you have to take your child to the dentist or to the pediatric dentist immediately after the first tooth erupts. Actually, that is the protocol. Immediately after your first tooth of the child erupts, the child has to be taken to the dentist for a thorough dental checkup or whatever. The child, it is also going to give. Do not be. There is nothing to be scared of. First of all, because anything that has been taken care of or anything that has been noted at an early stage will not require bigger treatments. That's the first thing. You bring the child with a big swelling, then definitely it is the child will require a pulpectomy, a crown. If the child is not cooperative, then we'll have to go in for general anesthesia, bigger treatments needed, full mouth rehabilitation. It goes on. But if you bring the child for normal routine dental checkup every 6 months, then things are going to be taken care of. Okay? Give the child fluoride treatments. For smaller childs, fluoride varnishes can be applied. For a little bigger child, for example, 5 years and 6-year-old children and above can be given fluoride gels with trays. Smaller children, fluoride varnishes can be applied. So such small things, the child will not, when you bring them at a very early stage, the children will also get accustomed to the dental setup, to the dentist. They will, become very, a friendly rapport will be built with the dentist. Rather than bringing them with, big swelling and lot of caries lesions, it is also a very big difficulty for the dentist also. Because to treat each and every tooth also, it's going to take some time. The multiple visits will be needed if you're going to do it chair side. So please get break the ice or break the thought that dentists are fearful or whatever. Please take the child to the dentist as soon as the first tooth erupts and brush the tooth of the child till the child becomes 7 or 8 years old. The parent, be it mother or father, please brush the tooth of the child till they are 7, 8 years old. So do not be afraid that there is no substitute for certain things. Just like there's no substitute for hard work, there's no substitute for certain things. Please get the checkups and done in a regular interval.
As you mentioned about nitrous oxide sedation, ma'am, out of curiosity, I'm asking you that can you address the stigma related to nitrous oxide and oxygen sedation, ma'am?
Yeah, so nitrous oxygen and oxygen sedation is like a conscious type of sedation. It comes under the category of conscious sedation. So this is basically indicated for children who are very anxious. As I told you, they go and hide behind the parent. So they don't flail their hands and legs, and then they don't shout, and they're not the most negative behavior in that. So they fall between the positive and the negative. They are anxious. They want to get the treatment done, but they're anxious. So to bring down the anxiety, so nitrous oxide oxygen sedation is basically, it works as an anti-anxiety drug. So it brings down the anxiety of the child. It can be used for adults also. For impactions, which are horizontal impaction and all. When I've gone through a horizontal impaction, I know how it feels. So it'll be like your jaw itself, your mandible is pulled out. That's how you'll feel. The way it is being, because you know the choice, because it's going to be low lying, very much close to the inferior alveolar nerve, can have nerve. So in those cases, it has to be taken out. So what happens is, in the madri irukkumbodhu, we can give them nitrous oxide oxygen sedation. That can be done. Now, there are a lot of stigmas that are being associated with the nitrous oxide oxygen sedation, stating that it is not safe and so on. No, it is completely safe, because we are going to administer very, very low levels of nitrous oxide along with oxygen. It is not that nitrous oxide is going to be given separately. We are going to administer oxygen and nitrous oxide together only. Okay, and it is going to be at completely safe levels. The mask that is also going to be used also is going to be, there are disposable masks available, there are nasal hoods, I'm saying. There are also sterilizable, autoclavable masks available. So you don't have to be worried about that also. The after effects also is going to be completely nil only. It is it is like you're floating in the air. You have a feeling of floating in the air. That's the feeling you will get. The pain sensation will also be reduced a little, but that does not mean you should not give a local anesthetic. A bit, it will be reduced a bit. It can be used for scaling procedures, oral prophylaxis. You will have complete sensitivity when you're doing, when you're doing lower anteriors, especially, So that also can also be, you can use nitrous oxide oxygen sedation to bring down the anxiety of the patient in that case also. And the preparation also is not much, like general anesthesia requires a bit more of preparation, but nitrous oxide oxygen sedation can be done chair side. Just we will give them some instructions to be followed. They cannot come on a full stomach. That is one very, very important thing. They cannot come on a full stomach. They have to have had their food at least 2 hours before, at least minimum. Actually, we say 4 hours. So now it has changed, like at least 2 hours before. Do not have a heavy meal or anything. So they have a feeling of floating in the air. So we can adjust the amount of nitrous oxide given, like 10, 20, 30, 40, and so on. So we keep increasing, and there is also something called as a safety valve mechanism that is present in the nitrous oxide unit, which means if your oxygen cylinder becomes empty, your nitrous oxide will not come at all. Okay, so which means the machine is not going to work if your oxygen cylinder is empty. So that's called the safety valve mechanism. So it is completely safe for anyone, for a child patient or for an adult. It is completely safe, and definitely it requires it requires a lot of awareness. People need to be made more aware of the nitrous oxide sedation, that it is available, and also availability. The equipment is obviously a little more. You have to invest a lot to buy in the equipment, and do not look for, again, what I'm saying is, do not look for returns of that investment that you made immediately. It is like, it is going to help you with your dental practice. It's like how your dental chair is going to help you with your dental practice. Your nitrous oxide sedation unit will also help you do a better treatment for the child, brings down the anxiety of the child. So it is completely safe, and awareness also has to be brought about it. Yeah.
People get confused with nitrous oxide sedation and general anesthesia, ma'am. So can you please explain the difference between both of them?
Actually, yes. Nitrous sedation அப்படின்னு சொன்ன உடனேயே they everybody gets ஒரு alarming signal. உடனே வந்து everybody is scared. இப்போ வந்து why we choose and for what kind of patients we choose whatங்கிறது is very very important. Whom are we going to choose general anesthesia for? Whom are we going to choose nitrous oxide sedation for? So indication, if you see for general anesthesia, basically children who are completely uncooperative. Like I told you, you've tried 2 or 3 sittings in your dental chair. The child is completely uncooperative. Below 3 years, you cannot even explain to the child. That is one. Second, there is full mouth rehabilitation. Okay, for the child that is needed. Many teeth, more than in their 20 primary teeth, about 10 teeth are affected. Okay, and full mouth rehabilitation is needed. Patient is uncooperative. Then general anesthesia will be needed. Indication for nitrous oxide oxygen is basically anxious children. Anxiety is the basic indication for nitrous oxide sedation unit. And the striking difference is the patient in general anesthesia, the child is going to be completely sleeping. The child will be unconscious of what is going on around them. That is the most important thing. In nitrous oxide, the child is going to be awake. Just that the level of consciousness is going to be a little lesser when you see nitrous oxide and oxygen sedation. The level of, you for arousal, if I have to tap their hand. If I say Sahana, are you able to hear me? That's that level of consciousness is going to be a little depressed with nitrous oxide oxygen sedation. But the child patient will be completely awake. They are not going to sleep. They will be conscious of what is going on. That is the striking difference. In general anesthesia, the child will be completely, unconscious of what is going on around them. So that's the striking difference. That is going to be done in a hospital setting. Your general anesthesia requires a trained an anesthetist who will be giving anesthesia to the child. It is going to be done in a complete hospital setting. And there is post GA recovery has to be done. The child will have to stay at least at least 2 hours after the completion of the procedure. But in nitrous oxide oxygen sedation, that is not required. It is going to be done chair side. These are the differences between general anesthesia and nitrous oxide.
Have you administered nitrous oxide sedation, ma'am? And do you have the nitrous oxide sedation unit in your clinic, ma'am?
Yes. Actually, nitrous oxide unit we have in our clinic, and we have administered nitrous oxide for patients. Now, what happens is we have to, first of all, we have to give them proper instructions before we ask them to come for the treatment per se. That is one thing. Second thing is that when we do the nitrous oxide sedation unit, we have to keep in mind that not all patients will get sedated at the same level. Some patients will get sedated at 30% nitrous oxide itself. Some patient, even at 70%, they will not get sedated, completely. So never stick on to one particular sedation, one particular percentage of sedation. You have to look for the cues or the signs. Like what will happen is, for example, if the child, when you sit on a dental chair, we have this habit of holding the arms of the dental chair, or we, hold our hands very tightly, like this, we do that. And then we cross our legs and sit. This kind of gives us kind of a security, we do that. But once we start administering nitrous oxide and the patient gets sedated, what they do is they will remove their hands. You can see that they remove their hands, they become relaxed. The crossed legs will open up, and then the eyes, the wide awake eyes will slightly start drooping. So these are the signs that you look for when you are actually, when you know that to know if the patient is sedated or not. So we have administered, it works well, but never predetermine your mind to one particular percentage of nitrous oxide that has to be given. Every patient will require different levels of sedation.
Another curious question, ma'am. We all heard that if we inhale nitrous oxide, we get high. Is it true? And have you ever tried it, ma'am?
Yes, I have tried it. Actually, when I went for a course in nitrous oxide on nitrous oxide sedation, that's the first time I tried. Yes, it will get you a little bit high. You will be like, that's what I told you. It will be like, you're floating in the air. So it'll be like a very relaxed kind of a state. எப்படி சொல்றது ரொம்ப ஒரே பயங்கர ரிலாக்ஸ்டு ஒரு 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 ஃப்ளோட்டிங் இன் தி ஏர் மாதிரி இருக்கும் அப்படி. ஸோ தட்ஸ் ஹவ் இட் இஸ். ஸோ அதனால ஜாஸ்தியாகவும் கொடுக்கக்கூடாது. You will have to maintain the thing, you cannot over sedate a patient also. So yes, it is but all of us who want to administer nitrous oxide should have had nitrous oxide sedation at least once in their lifetime to know what it feels like. Just like how when we are giving a local anesthetic injection, they will say, have you had the local anesthetic shot? Only then you will be able to tell the patient what kind of a symptoms they will feel, what are the what are the feelings that you have in your mind. You will be able to read the patient's mind. That kind of when once we give our local anesthesia, you feel lower kudukumbodhu, you feel that your lips, you don't have control over your lips. Idella when you know only, you will be able to tell the patient also. And the madri, you have to get the exposure to nitrous oxide. You can come to our clinic once. We can have Dr. Sahana also sedated with nitrous oxide.
Yes, ma'am. We all will come for nitrous oxide sedation, ma'am.
Done.
So, is there a way to simplify periodontics and study easily and enjoy the work without taking stress, ma'am?
Actually, there are very few topics which are, very crystal clear that these are the most important topics in periodontics. Very, very important. Like, for example, behavior management. There is nothing without behavior management that you can do. Child psychology and behavior management is the basis for treating a child. So anything you start off, please start with understanding the concept. Never go and mug up, because if you ask me, final years too, they have lot of subjects, so it is now impossible to remember all the everything without understanding the concept. So that's why when I take a class also, most of the time I will give them bullet points, but I always tell them concepts, and try and relate the concepts to something that will make you remember. For example, I will tell subjective and objective fear appadina enna or explanation. I don't know if Sahana you remember, I will tell that objective fear is basically what is there within yourself, even without like, for example, or I'm sorry, objective fear is you have faced the fear. For example, that the intern or the student, the final year student comes to the posting, has faced the posting, has gone through some experiences, so they know the fear. Okay, so that is the objective fear. They have faced the posting, so they know I have to do these work, so they know they are very scared of going into the postings and clinical postings. So that is kind of an objective fear. If this student goes to another student who has not come to the posting at all and tells, ஐயோ அங்க போனா அந்த டிபார்ட்மெண்ட்ல அதெல்லாம் கேக்குறாங்கப்பா, இந்த இன்ஸ்ட்ருமெண்ட்லாம் கேக்குறாங்கப்பா, they are asking me so many things, there's so many questions they are asking, case history படிக்கணும், இது படிக்கணும். So that is the fear that is being transferred from one person to another without the other person being directly facing it. That is subjective fear. So I remember the concepts with such examples. So for objective and subjective fear, I give such examples so that they remember what it is. Objective is basically what you have undergone yourself. You know what the fear is. Subjective is you have taken it up from someone even without understanding what, even without you undergoing that particular circumstance or that incident. So in the madri, you can have small concepts. And apart from behavior management and child psychology, most important things will be pulpotomy and pulpectomy. Very, very important. Pulpotomy na coronal pulp is removed. Pulpectomy na the entire pulp is removed. In the concept irundale, it is very easy. Pulpotomy. Otomy na is I'm going to remove only the coronal pulp. Pulpectomy na ectomy, I'm going to remove the entire pulp, necrosed pulp. Idiliye nariya students they get confused. So that is very important. So never go wrong with your basics. Pulpotomy, pulpectomy differences theriyum. And most important thing after that is your stainless steel crowns. It is very important. So these concepts, these things, topics, you can never get rid of those topics. Just like that, don't read through those topics. Those topics are very, very important. Stainless steel crowns are day in and day out pediatric dentists are doing. So other padikkanum. So if you don't understand something, for example, please ask your faculty member or whoever for doubts. And even if you still don't understand, there are videos on how the stainless steel crown is placed. Let your YouTube open panningena how to place a crown preparation for stainless steel crowns appdin potale varudhu. So don't mug up all the concepts. Don't mug up the preparation thing. Just on the occlusal preparation. இப்போ நீங்க வந்து எப்பவுமே ப்ராஸ்தோல கூட you're going to do your jacket crown preparation. அதே மாதிரி when you're going to do preparation for your stainless steel crown also, just remember occlusal preparation இருக்கு, அப்புறம் proximal preparation இருக்கு, buccolingual preparation இருக்கு. So remember only the key points. You cannot, how much ever you put in your effort and learn, in your exam hall, you will remember only 50-60% of it. That is human tendency. So make sure you read things that you will be able to remember. Don't read unnecessary things. If you are able to, in your, suppose you also have author names, illingla. So if ungala author names nyabagam vechika mudiyumna, read up the author names. Otherwise leave it, no problem. At least I'm talking about the undergraduates. I'm not talking about the postgraduates. Author names are very, very essential. So undergraduates can do it that way. So அந்த மாதிரி stainless steel crowns பத்தி படிக்கலாம். So you snap fit. Then என்ன type of என்ன ஒரு preparationக்கும் என்ன மாதிரி crown has to be in what shape. Frown shape, smiley shape. So very small things. So take up only the bullet points and learn. And then for your space management pathina, that is another important topic. Space management la pathina, most asked questions வந்து உங்களுக்கே தெரியும். Band and loop, distal shoe, அதெல்லாம் உங்களுக்கே தெரியும். அதை தவிர if you talk about viva questions, most important will be your considerations for placing a space maintainer. I would have asked everybody this question. What are the considerations when you want to place a space maintainer? Just like that, you can't put space maintainer, extract put space maintainer. Is that patient really requiring a space maintainer in that particular region? So on the concepts. So in the concept wise, neenga padichina, I think it will be easier. These are the most important things in pediatric dentistry. So take up a concept related to something that you will always remember, and then try writing bullet points, and then I'm sure it will work out.
What would you like to say in regards to choosing the right path and specialty for the budding dentist, ma'am?
See, first of all, there is nothing to be scared of, because we are in this together. We are going to come out of it together. Definitely the fear of minimal clinical exposure is going to be there. Maybe you can during your, after this lockdown, and then you pass out of your college or something, you can get trained from dentists in other clinics. You can work under them for about 1 year or 1.5 years, and then you can get trained from them, look at the clinical exposure, whatever you can do. That is one thing that can be done. And we can definitely follow protocols and still do all the treatments, so don't worry about it. Follow proper protocols, PPE. Don't forget your face shield, your N95 masks, your head caps. Okay, if you want to use a double glove technique, use all of these things and use a disposable gown or an autoclavable gown. Please do not hesitate. Come out of the fear. You can definitely treat patients. That is nothing. It is not like we cannot treat patients. Maybe the initial fear of treating will be there. Definitely after that you will get used to it. Okay, that is one thing for clinical aspiring students. If students are aspiring for another kind of a career, then research is a very, very good option. Research can be taken up as a career which is being very much unexplored. Many of us are not being exposed to that in our undergraduation. I feel the research exposure is not there, but definitely it can be taken up as a career. But just like how we need basics of clinicals to do some amount of clinical dentistry, we need some amount of basics in research methodology and biostatistics and all that. You need to go for a little bit of courses. Courses are available, online courses are available. When I was in my post graduation, every research methodology course our guide, our HOD used to ask us to go, because you have to keep on learning. Certain concepts, you will learn only if you will remember, and you will apply only if you keep on reading, only if you keep on learning. Otherwise, you won't remember. And research methodology is basically lots of concepts. You have to keep on updating yourself and learning. So first of all, you should have an eye to learn. Basics of research methodology and biostatistics courses are available. And there's one online portal called as Coursera. This Coursera has a lot of online courses, from basic research methodology to advanced systematic reviews. So they have good online courses. So you can actually, they have from 4 weeks course, 6 weeks course, 8 weeks course. They'll give you recordings. Okay. They'll give you recordings. You'll have to look at the recordings. Then you have to answer their questions. MCQ questions will be given. So then they will give you, it is from good, renowned international universities. Okay. So that is a very good option that can be done. So once you are a little thorough with your research methodology and biostatistics, you can publish papers. First of all, you can go and to get a little bit of experience, you can go to your mentor or your faculty member, ask for their guidance. Along with them, you can publish a paper. Then later on, maybe you can write a proposal yourself. For how to write a proposal, அப்படிங்கிறதே ஒரு separate topic actually. ஒரு proposal எழுதணும்னா இப்போ நம்ம ICMR இருக்கு இல்லைங்களா, Indian Council of Medical Research. நீங்க அவங்க வெப்சைட்ல if you go and see the lot of grants that are available, they will open, and the grant அப்பப்போ they will open. So you don't, they are all funded research. So for example, they will say 10 lakhs fund அப்படின்னா, you can write the grant for that. You can write your research proposal. அது எப்படின்னா, how your research, what is the research, what is the problem, what are you going to do about that problem, and how your research is going to benefit the society. This is what they want. Basically, your research proposal should contain all of this. It will have different formats, but this is the outline. I'm just putting it in a nutshell. So what you have to do is you have to have all of these things. And if it gets approved, then they will give you that grant amount. So your research, whatever you're going to do, like you're going to do a community-based research, you're going to do a questionnaire survey, everything, they will fund it for you. And what happens is, if at all it's a fellowship course, like or 3 years fellowship, now the 3 years you will be paid. You will be given money. Okay. And the money, it is going to be based on the cadres. There's a junior research fellow, senior research fellow, research associate. And the money cadres. So initially you will be a junior research fellow. So you will be getting one amount of money. So on the 3 years, then again, if you apply for a grant or something, or you become a part of another grant, you will become a senior research fellow. So you can take up research as a career. It is a very, very good option, provided you have the insight to do it. It is it is like you should have the grit and determination to do it, because like a clinical practice, it is not going to give immediate results. இப்போ நீங்க ஒரு ட்ரீட்மெண்ட் பண்றீங்க, உங்களுக்கு immediate result உங்களுக்கு கிடைக்கும், உங்களுக்கு ட்ரீட்மெண்ட் பண்றீங்க, you're going to get your the amount for it, or whatever, you're going to get the payment for it immediately. But research is not like that. You have to work for it. There will be a lot of pitfalls. It won't get clicked immediately, but you have to keep working for it. So it is definitely a very good career path. If at all you want to take up research as a career, please, it can definitely be done.
Just after completing BDS, can we join the course, or we have to do any other MSc or MBA or something like that, ma'am?
No, after BDS itself, you can do your research. Research can be done, and but you have to have some basic knowledge, as I told you, about research methodology. Otherwise, it is very difficult to write a proposal itself. So, what I suggest is go for small courses. First, you go for some 2-day, 3-day courses. Online courses where research methodology courses. Just first, what are the different types of study designs available? Like edithodne, you're not going to do one big research on all. You're not going to give them any treatment with treatment pannapro. What is the treatment panama? That is called randomized control trial. And the mari you're not going to do. So learn what are the study designs, basics படிச்சுக்கோங்க. First அதுக்கு ஒரு 2-3 courses பண்ணுங்க. You will know what it is. அதுக்கப்புறம் வந்து you can, as I told you, you can become a junior research fellow or something. You can நீங்களா grant எழுதாம first if you have a faculty member who's actually into research, then there's nothing like it. They are going to apply for grant now. They will need people who work under them. அந்த மாதிரியும் இருக்கு. There are options like that. Okay, suppose இப்போ ஒரு 20 lakh grant ன்னு வெச்சுக்கோங்களேன். There's a principal investigator. Suppose your faculty is a principal investigator, you can work under your faculty as a junior research fellow. Okay, that is possible. You don't have to do a degree after BDS to do all this. You just need some experience. You need some basic knowledge on research methodology.
So yes, ma'am, we have come to an end. So the final question is, any advice on what measures and precautions to be taken with children and the active pandemic?
For children as such, I think first of all, a big thumbs up to all the children. Right from 2020, they've not seen the outside world. They do not know what it is. They don't know the difference between an annual holiday and the school timings. The annual holidays has become a big zero for them. I really am very much happy to see how much these children have coped up. They cannot see their friends. They cannot do online, they cannot do video calls like us to our relatives or to their friends. They've very well cooperated with the situation. So big thumbs up to all the children first. Second, I think they're all, children understand, nowadays they understand what we tell. So now the vaccines for children have not yet been opened. The trials are just started. So most important thing is all of us have to get vaccinated. 2 doses definitely. So vaccination is the key to fight this pandemic. So get vaccinated. Even after you get vaccinated, social distancing, follow all the protocols, and follow all the protocols in your clinic also. Do not miss any of the protocols in your clinic, because I feel that we are people who are in direct contact with with the patient. So much close contact with the patient, the aerosols and so on. So follow everything. Do not miss even your head cap. That's what I will say. Never many people I see that they work without the head cap and all that, even in this situation. Don't do that. Don't take up such things for granted. And if you're going to be in your scrubs or anything, try and disinfect those clothes immediately. Yeah. So those are the things from the clinical point of view. These are the things that you can do to prevent third wave. But if third wave is inevitable, what can we do? We just have to follow our protocols. Stay home. Use your sanitizer as much as possible. Wash your hands. Everything same protocols only. But for the children, I think keep them home. Even if you have to go out, buy your groceries or something, make sure you don't take the children to those places. I think that is not needed, because nowadays grocery shops are the most crowded. Supermarkets and groceries are very crowded. Don't take the children to such places because they are not vaccinated. We are the ones who are vaccinated. And when you go out somewhere and come, wash your hands thoroughly. And if you feel you've gone to a crowded place, please take a bath immediately. How many times it requires to take a bath in one day, please do so. This is how we can protect our children, and this is how we can protect the children of our society. So that's my take on this. And thank you, Sahana, for this opportunity. It was great talking to you. And I'm very, very happy to be in your channel, and very proud that you've come this far with more than 1,000 followers and subscribers. It's a very great milestone. My best wishes for your upcoming targets, or whatever your ambitions are. Do well, and all the very, very best.
Thank you, ma'am. And as you mentioned before, as an example, has happened to me also. Because when I was in first posting, they have told me that you are a student of Aarti, ma'am. Then it's gone. They are going to screw you like anything. But you have been such a wonderful mentor for me from my final year until date. You have been such a good mentor for me. And thank you for being with me, ma'am. And keep supporting. And thank you, ma'am, for your valuable time and suggestions. It was very interesting to get to know more about your professional experience and personal experience. And I look forward to being in touch with you and appreciate all the works and effort you have done. And thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Sahana. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
So yes, finally we are all through KV Medical and Dental Care, which is located in Amjikarai near Ampa Skywalk and Yamar Hospital, and they give all kind of dental treatment, but they are so much specialized towards root canal treatment, all ceramic crowns, implants, orthodontic treatment, and treatment of early childhood caries and space maintenance for children, and treatment under general anesthesia and conscious sedation with nitrous oxide and oxygen unit, and aesthetic restoration of teeth with zirconia crowns. So Google link is given in the description. You can check them for consultation and appointments.